up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to the TNT Effect, the Athletes Podcast. I'm Dr. Tiara, and today we have Coach Lloyd Yaxley of the Orlando Pride. He is the goalkeeper coach, by the way. And so, first of all, let's talk about this impressive resume that you have. Like, you work with some impressive or like world-class athletes, world-class goalkeepers. Ashlyn Harris, you've worked with Stephanie LeBay. And how is it working with some of those top-notch athletes in comparison to working with some of the youth athletes? Because you do have experience working with like U.S. Soccer's youth national teams, their U23, U18. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, it's a blessing to be able to work with the talented people that I've been given an opportunity to work with, and I think no matter what environment I go into, like I'm always going to try and develop and try and teach. So whether that's an Ash or a Steph or a Jane Campbell or whoever, or if it's a 16-year-old, like they still have that hunger to learn and to get better. So there's not that much difference. I mean, obviously the end results are a little different just because they're at different stages of their careers, but you know, the majority of the time, the attitude and the work rate that they have towards getting better is what I kind of thrive off of.
Mm-hmm. So you talk about learning, that ability to learn. What are the things or the key points that you focus on when you're teaching your players or developing those players? And what are some things that they should actually be hungry to learn?
Yeah, I think the part that you don't see, I think you see a lot of the technical and the tactical learning on the field, but like I do think that off the field is something that younger athletes aren't as efficient with in their game. So you know, like our more experienced goalkeepers at the Pride, like Erin McLeod and Ash, like they understand the recovery and the mental side of the game, and they get what works for them better away from training and away from games. And I feel like the younger athletes, like that's something that's very new to them. So it's kind of introducing that, and you know, you might introduce visualization or you know, a recovery process or something like that. But I think that's a big difference. And then, you know, what is that athlete doing away from the field as far as like watching games and understanding the game better, and those little 1%, 2%, I think is what sets aside the good from the great.
So from your perspective as a coach, like what age would you know, the ideal age would you ask players or it would be to their benefit to start thinking about the mental side of the game, thinking about the recovery process, all of those things that are essential off the field so you can produce or perform on the field?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the recovery process can probably come later than the mental processes that could help that goalkeeper better perform or that athlete better perform. Just because the recovery and that, you know, there's no point telling a 9-10-year-old, all right, you need to ice bath after playing and you need to you know, do all that stuff, because their body's still growing, their body's still developing. So it's just a different stage of their physical development. So, you know, that part of the recovery would maybe be 14, 15 would be a rough guess. And I have no science to back that up at all. That's just me kind of putting a number to a thought. But as far as the mental process, like I really think you can start that at 8, 9, 10 years old. Like if someone is serious about a sport, I think why not say, hey, like imagine yourself making the best save or scoring the best goal or hitting the best golf shot, whatever your sport is. I really think that, you know, learning those basic techniques of visualization or whatever it might be can really help their growth. And then as they get older, they might add more layers to that process to best suit them. So the mental side, I think, is an area that is often not spoken about, but I really think it can add massive gains to people's games.
Absolutely. And as far as the recovery goes, like I can speak to that a little bit. Yes, when you're really young, it's difficult to one to get them to buy into it and be consistent with it, but also they are growing. So there are certain things they don't necessarily have to start as young. Like you mentioned, the ice baths and things of that nature. When it comes to stretching, I mean, they may or may not be super flexible anyway, so you don't want to get into the point where you're stretching someone who's already flexible. But it is, getting into the mindset of recovering with nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
That is important. The what you eat and how you fuel your body. That is absolutely important. It doesn't matter what age you are.
Yeah.
And that's a part of the recovery process. And just being able to take care of your body, making sure you when you get out of your cleats, making sure you're having the proper footwear, all of those little things, little nuances that are important for younger athletes. And then as they get older, yes, you start to implement some more detailed recovery techniques into their game, into the process. And so thinking about COVID-19 and everything that's happened and what's happening now, Orlando Pride, the Challenge Cup, they weren't able to participate. How was that for you all, you as a coach, and also seeing the players, and how did that affect you all?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been the hardest thing I've ever had to deal with as a coach. Because we were obviously preparing and really excited to go and compete in the tournament, and then what happened. We had multiple positive tests with COVID, so then it was almost like, all right, well, how can we keep the team positive, and how can we, I guess, see this as I don't know if a stepping stone is the right analogy to use, but how can we see this as part of the journey, and a part of our process to make us better as a team or make us stronger as a collective. So yeah, it was really hard, and even before that, when we were doing individual training and we were restricted to the number of players that you could have within training, it was and everyone was doing it because the whole league was mandating that was what we were allowed to be doing at that stage of time. It was just very different, like not to be able to have that close interaction, or even strike a ball at another goalkeeper. They had to do it all themselves, so it was really challenging. And I don't know, like it was the hardest thing was probably watching the other teams playing the games though, and not being a part of it, and not being able to compete. I guess it's just made us hungrier for these. Well, we played on Saturday, but these next 3 games that we have coming up, and going into next year, we're gonna really thrive off that missed time that we didn't get in Utah.
Right. So with all that extra time, and it made you hungrier. So during that time, you've crossed the phase 1, maybe even phase 2 of returning to play. And so now you have all this time to just train, watch the other teams play, really do your scouting on those different teams and get ready for now the fall series. What does training look like these days?
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty much back to normal now. We're missing quite a few players because they went on loan to Europe. So we've brought in new faces. We've brought in players that might not have necessarily been given an opportunity to play, but now they are, and they're taking it with both hands. But yeah, we're training right now is back to normal. Like, I guess the only thing that is different is still within our facility, like use of the gym and meal time and things like that. We still have to socially distance and wear a mask around the facility, and temperature checks, and the nasal swabs and all that fun stuff. So that's really the only difference in our day-to-day job at the moment. Is more off the field than on the field. On the field, we're full training. We're rolling with what we have. So
awesome. So you touched on players getting an opportunity who might not have had an opportunity if other players maybe have not gone out on loan. Talk about the importance of staying ready so you don't have to get ready. For those players who may not have as much confidence and, you know, believing that they will get an opportunity over some of the other players or the starters, talk about that point.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with life in general and sport, I guess, highlights it, is that you never know when an opportunity is going to come. So I think it's imperative that you're ready for whatever comes your way. Like there's a great example. I think it's two or 3 years ago. Our second choice goalkeeper got injured, and we were playing in Seattle. So I had to call up. I called up a girl, Caroline Stanley, and kind of said, "Hey, can you meet us in Seattle? Train the day before the game, and then you'll just sit on our bench, and that will kind of be the end of it." Well, like 15 minutes into that game, Ash took a goal kick and tore her quad. So Caroline ended up playing, 75 minutes of that game that she was just been called in to sit on the bench just to kind of fill a spot. Ended up training with us for the rest of the season. So you just never know. You just never know when that opportunity is going to come. You never know when someone's going to get an injury, or you don't know what the coach sees you doing or what their thoughts are on you. So you might have done something in training that they want to reward you for with some minutes. So you have to be ready, and you have to have that mentality of, when I get my chance, I'm going to take it. Because if you don't, there's going to be somebody else that does. So super important.
I agree. Having that mentality, being hungry, being ready, and believing in yourself, no matter what the circumstances are, because you have no idea what may happen. And so if you have that confidence that I can perform at any moment, and the coaches see the confidence, they see your hard work, and they are ready to, like, hey, your turn to shine. Show me what you have. Show me what you've been working on. And you just may get the opportunity, and now you're the starter. Now you're coming off the bench and getting those minutes that you never thought you would have, had the opportunity to get at some point.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a great point. And going into your coaching style. So I've seen you in action, and you were like super fun to be around, super fun to be coached by. I've never been coached by you, but I probably would never have had the opportunity to be coached by you at 4'11". But I know I've seen you coach some of the athletes, and it's, from my perspective, it's great seeing you coach the athletes. So what is your coaching style? What do you thrive on as a coach?
Well, I appreciate the kind comments. It must have been a one-off video, because I'm normally like an evil guy in there coaching. But no, I think I guess the best way I describe my style is it's a collaboration. Like I don't want my session design or whatever I'm working on to all be about me, because at the end of the day, it's not about me. It's not me that's got to perform. It's the athlete. So it is a collaboration, and like there's times within my sessions that I'll say to the goalkeepers that I'm working with, like, if this movement doesn't feel right, or if this aspect doesn't feel realistic, then like tell me, and we can change it, and we can, and it might be something as simple as just a step here, or move in a different way. So it is collaborative. I try and put little twists on it. Like I do believe that other sports, I can take things from other sports and kind of get little twists and turns on what I do with my goalkeepers. So it might be something like, I always use like ice hockey goalkeeping as an example, like the way they position their hands, or position different body parts in certain phases of play. Like, it really interests me. So I'm always trying to find little edges, or little ways that we can have little gains here and there for the goalkeepers. But obviously the session needs to be fun, and it needs to be challenging. So yeah, but look, it is a collaboration, and it isn't me saying no, it's got to be done this way, because at the end of the day, what works for me or what works for you or what works for another goalkeeper might be the complete other end of the scale for another person. So it is finding a way to put how I want my goalkeepers to look and perform, and saying why I want them to look and perform in that certain way in that scenario, and the benefit of playing that way. Well, then they can add that to their game, or that might not work for them, but that's cool. Like, I'm fine with that. Like, if what I'm saying isn't going to work for how you play, like, that's great. Like, I'm fine with that. So hopefully, like, I can just add other components to their game that they maybe haven't thought about, or maybe haven't realized is something that could be a real strength of theirs. And then just highlight, hey, you're getting success from doing this. This is great. Like, let's keep trucking along this road, and see what other layers we can add.
Good. So how do you manage those goalkeepers that you have for a short period of time versus you're working full time with goalkeepers? Because there are those moments where you go in to, again, US soccer, and you're working with athletes for, it could be maybe a week, less than a week, more than a week. And then you have your players that you're working with for an entire season plus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely different. You know, with the Pride goalkeepers, I can have I wouldn't say a year plan, but I can see things that they need work on, and I can manipulate the schedule to grow those areas or to strengthen those areas. Whereas, you know, if we're in a US soccer camp, I've probably may not have ever worked with that goalkeeper before. I may have only been able to get snippets of conversations from other coaches about what that goalkeeper's strengths, weaknesses are, but then I might see other strengths and weaknesses. And then on top of that, it really depends on, you know, is it a tournament that you're playing in? Is it just a one-off camp? Is it like, because between that development, you've also got to get the performance side of it. Like, if you're about to play against Sweden, then you've got to get them ready to play against Sweden and not work on a weakness within their game. You've got to give them confidence. So the one-off camps is always interesting, and it's again trying to put my little twist on the way that I want the goalkeepers to look. That's obviously harder in a week or 10 days or whatever it is than over a year or 5 years, whatever it is, however long I get a chance to work with certain people. But I think it is just like with the youth national team goalkeepers and the youth goalkeepers that I work with in Orlando, it's just like planting seeds, and you know, every now and then you'll say, hey, like, remember we spoke about this? Well, this can really work for you, and you just keep growing that seed. And who knows, like the youth national team goalkeepers that I've worked with in the past, like, I might get another opportunity to work with them, and then we can just keep growing on that stuff. But it is definitely a different I don't know, challenge as a coach, but it's a different mentality almost when you've got a season to grow someone than when you have a week of development and also gameplay.
Right. And so now, have you coached male athletes?
Not for a season. Like in previous seasons with Orlando, I've worked with the MLS goalkeepers. Like I took preseason with some of them last season, and then there'd be times where the goalkeeper that wasn't traveling, I would do sessions with. So yeah, I have worked with male goalkeepers. The majority of my experiences in the pro side has been with the female game, obviously. But there's like collegiate level kids that I've worked with, and that are male, as well as the MLS guys. So I do have experience on both sides.
Yeah, so the reason I asked that because I want to know, like, what are the differences between coaching females versus male athletes that you've experienced?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, because there aren't that many differences. Like, there are obviously some physiological differences, for sure, like just raw athleticism. Like, just males are just more powerful and more springy and have a little more about their game. But I do feel like the female athletes are very attentive to details. So like I could break stuff down a video session or within training, and the female goalkeepers want to know why, they want to know how, they want to know well, what if, whereas the guys sometimes just like, yeah.
Got it.
or they're like, no, don't like that, and there's no real rhyme or reason for it. So there are definitely differences, and I think there's tactical differences as well. Just something like a cross, like the velocity that a male can hit a cross is obviously quicker, so that's shorter reaction time for the goalkeeper. So their starting position may be different than it would be in the female game. But in general, like when I coach guys and when I coach girls, like there's no difference about my session at all. Like I wouldn't not do something with a female athlete because they can't do it, because they can do everything that the guys can. So there's not many changes. I would actually say most of the differences is just on physically being able to jump higher, physically being able to move quicker or be more powerful, have a larger extension. But other than that, like I wouldn't do anything different within my sessions.
Okay. And so how do you manage disappointments from a coach's perspective, and then also obviously managing the athletes, keeping their spirits up? Because sometimes you have those games and everyone puts all the weight, the loss and disappointment of the game on the goalkeeper, right? Mm-hmm. And so how do you navigate those waters?
Yeah, it's like, for me, it's about having that personal connection with the goalkeepers. So like if they're hurting, like I want them to feel open to be able to call me, or we'll go get a coffee and talk about it. Because sometimes, you know, within the training ground and that, like sometimes you just want to get out of that environment and go to Starbucks and talk about it and be away from the other players or the other staff or whatever, just have a fresh head. But like, I think with goalkeeping, there is a realization that it's just a part of the position. You know, like you're either going to be the hero or the goat. And sometimes you're the Jurassic Park goat getting eaten by the T-Rex. So like, I think as long as, I think this is where it's kind of sets apart like the world-class goalkeepers from like that they're pretty good goalkeepers, is that the world-class will like make an error, but they'll grow from that error. And you'd like to say they don't make that error again, or it will be a real area that you see, oh, that's just a one-off. So it is tough, like, and especially for younger goalkeepers, like, you know, like if you've got a 10, 11-year-old kid and they've played in a game and their team's lost 10-0, 11-0, like that's kind of demoralizing for younger kids at times. So I think it's up to us as coaches to let that player, those younger players especially, understand that just because you conceded 10 goals, that isn't a measurement of your performance. Like you could have the game of your life and lose 10-0, and you could play really, really bad and win a game 2-1. So I think the result of the team or the result of the scoreline isn't always a measurement of your performance. And I think that's really important to tell that to younger players, especially younger goalkeepers, because they get so wrapped up on, I conceded 5 goals and I'm the worst goalkeeper ever. And like, we all have bad days. Do you know what I mean? Like it's part of it, but they always correlate that to the score or how many goals they conceded, or they think they've had a great game because they've conceded 0 goals, but they haven't passed to anyone of their team. They haven't caught a single cross. They haven't made any saves, or if they have, they've dropped it. So I think it's understanding that, you know, like the measurement of goalkeeping shouldn't be on the scoreline. It should be on the overall performance.
So obviously that can be a challenge of, you know, coaching. What are some other challenges that you experience as a coach?
Well, I mean, like just personally, like being away from family and that side of things is a challenge. But like, I think the one of the biggest challenges that I have on the field is the differences in ability at times. Like, we have Olympic level athletes, and then we have kids that have just graduated college. So it's obviously completely varying experiences. It's almost like having a kindergarten kid and someone that's just about to graduate from college at times. Now, that's a really extreme way of putting it. But as far as a 22-year-old and a 32-year-old, that's 10 years of playing soccer that they've got over the other one, which is 10 years of growth that they've had, and 10 years of understanding the difference between the speed of play as a professional and as a collegiate athlete. And I think anytime you speak to a younger soccer player that's in our league, and the question they often get asked is like, what's the big difference between college and the pro game? They'll always say the speed of play. So I think it's that is always a challenge. It's almost getting those younger goalkeepers up to speed with, this is the expectation. You can get away with this in college, but you're not going to be able to get away with it now, because now you're playing against Megan Rapinoe, and you're playing against Lindsay Horan, and you're playing against people that are going to punish you. So it's getting them up to speed is the biggest challenge, I guess, as a coach. I'm trying to think what else I would find challenging. Like, the rest of it is really enjoyable. Like, I love doing what I do. Like, it's amazing. Like, I mean, I could be back in England being a postman or something like that, and I'm really fortunate to be doing something that I love. So
or selling your cookies.
So honestly, like, I just see the challenges as part of it. And like, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm a teacher, so that's a measurement of my ability as a coach, is has that individual learned, and have they grown? And I'd like to think that like a decent amount of goalkeepers that have kind of left my nest have gone on to better things, which is something that is really rewarding for me.
Nice. So, okay. Speaking of athletes who've gone on, or even some of your current athletes, what would they say about you?
My face would be on a dartboard, and they'd be like throwing axes at it. That's a really good question, and no one's ever asked me that. I would like to think that like, I'm someone that they feel that they can lean on when they need to be lent on. And like, if there's things going on outside of soccer that if they needed to speak to someone, that they would feel like they would be able to open up to me. But like, I mean, my job is for them to make them better. So if they feel like after a week or a year or 2 years or whatever, if they feel like their growth has gone on an upward scale, and you know, when people say, oh, what was Lloyd like? And they say, well, he made me a better goalkeeper. Like, that's me doing my job at the end of the day. Like, I would like to think that they enjoy the sessions, but that's not always going to be the case. But if they feel like I've made them better, then like, I think that would be the one thing that I'd really want to hear them say. Like I really felt like I got better, and I enjoyed, I enjoyed that growth.
That's always important, to have a coach who cares about you, and who cares about not just as a player, but on a personal level, because there's life after sports, and you want to be able to at least garner something from that coach that can teach you life lessons, and that you can take as you move past sports and go into your next journey, whatever that may be. So that's always important. And
it's like one of those, like, if there's a keeper that I coach that's in the league, and like, they're just happy to see me, and like, for me, that's an indication that they probably got something out of being around me, which is rewarding, you know, as a coach. Like you want players to feel like they got better. So like, you know, a youth national team kid, I might not see them for 4 or 5 years, but if they remember me, that's probably a good sign that they remembered something from the session. Hopefully.
Right, hopefully.
Fingers crossed.
Nice. So before closing out, what tips or, just advice you would give to younger athletes who aspire to play on a professional level? So that can be obviously tips for high school kids, middle school, what have you, and even the collegiate athletes who are one step away from the professional level.
Yeah, I think a big one is to watch the game. So if you want to play in the MLS, or if you want to play in the NWSL, or you want to play in the Premier League, and you think you're good enough to make it at any of those levels, or you're a high school kid and you want to play D1 ball, or you want to play at college, like, you've got to watch those games, because if you don't know who you're measuring yourself up against. And I think a lot of younger kids, they're like, I want to go play for UNC, or I want to go play at UVA, or I want to play at UCLA, like whatever, any of those big programs, but they've never watched a game. So like, how do you know if you're good enough for that level, or how do you know what that level looks like, and how do you keep on that path to get to that level? So I think that is massive. And I mean, for me, to be a pro, like, you've got to have a growth mindset. And if you don't have a growth mindset and you're not getting better every day and you're not hungry to get better, you're going to hit a wall at some point. Like, I want players and athletes that don't see walls. They have a ladder with them, and they put the ladder and they're over the wall to get better. So yeah, I think watching the game is really important. Like, we spoke about the mental side, and you mentioned nutrition and those things, and anything that you can get an edge on someone, like, that's going to be huge for you when you are pro or college or any environment that you're going to be in competition for a position against another person. Like, if you're doing things that they're not, you're going to be in a better position. So knowing the opposition, watching game film, reviewing your training sessions, eating right, behaving right outside, getting around good people, like, all of that stuff is going to hold you in a good way to get better. Now, if you're out partying and you're not doing that stuff, and you're not watching the game, you're watching, I don't know, you're watching something else on TV, you're watching Game of Thrones, whereas you could be watching a soccer game, like, you're not going to get better. Now, there'll be someone that might have less ability, but they're growing, and soon that ability will overtake. So do the little things that you don't think your competition's doing, and you're going to keep growing. And I think that understanding the game is a massive one. And when they watch the game, it's like, especially for a goalkeeper, I think it's watching the game and going, well, what is that goalkeeper doing? Like, if you're watching, Alisson, who plays for Liverpool, or Edison at Man City, or any of those guys, like, see what they see and try and understand the decisions that they're making, and that will help your growth.
Definitely. Yep. So I think all of that is those are some great points, great tips, and visualization for sure. If you're not in a position where you can actually watch film or anything like that, just visualize maybe what you did in training, or visualize what you want to see yourself doing for the upcoming game or something like that. So those are all key important aspects, and I agree with that. Being coachable, respectful, and having just a good support system, a good group of people that you're around, because you do pull from the people that you're around. So you always want to surround yourself with positive, like-minded individuals.
Without a doubt.
Right? Wouldn't you agree with that, Coach?
I most definitely agree with that. Yeah, I think you're always judged by people you're around, and that sounds bad. But if you get in with a bad crowd, or a crowd that has a reputation of being lazy, or whatever that reputation may be, that has negative connotations, like, you got to change that, and you got to be the bigger person. And if you have lofty goals, then you're going to have to make sacrifices. And I think that's something that people don't talk about. Like, if you want to be the best, like you're making sacrifices away from like, going out with friends or family events, or like, I can't tell you the amount of weddings or funerals and things like that I've missed, like anniversaries and birthdays, because like, I want to be the best at what I do. So sometimes those sacrifices have to happen. Like, if you want to be the best, you have to make sacrifices. So yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That is very true. I think everybody who is a part of the athletes team as well as the athlete, they're all making sacrifices on so many different levels. So that's good. That's good. Well, Coach, thank you so much for your time. Thank you. It's been good.